Thanks for dropping by. This is a Bible study for Wednesday, June the 14th, 2023. And folks, I hope that you will subscribe to my channel. Still about half the people that listen to my videos are not subscribed. I hope you'll hit the bell so you get notified every time I put something out. Give me thumbs up, make comments, help me get this out to more and more people. I want to teach the Bible, make it possible for people to put in prayer requests. I'll do a prayer video for you. And I call this now Christian Ministry Central. Want to provide Christian ministry for people. Teach the Bible, offer prayer to people, try to reach out and touch needs, draw people closer to Jesus Christ. That's what this is about. This is a Bible study about money and possessions. Any of you have too much money and possessions? That's never been my issue, but it has happened to some. So I want to start off by posing some questions. Does money bring happiness? Okay. Does money bring happiness? Give that some consideration, Is that the way, if you had more money, would you be happy? Think about it that way. Here's kind of my assessment of that. I think money can bring what's called freedom. Sometimes it can provide freedom as long as you own it and it doesn't own you. But I don't think there's happiness in money just because you have money. That's not where you're going to find happiness. Happiness, most of all, is an attitude. You decide to be happy. It doesn't have anything to do with circumstances, okay? So I don't think money necessarily brings happiness. Is it wise to love money? Will loving money bring joy into your life? Well, there's an answer for that in the Bible. 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10. 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10. And it's very, very straightforward about this. It says, for the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people eager for money have wandered from the truth, from the faith, and pierced themselves with many griefs. You see, the love of money is a root of all evil. It can wreck your life. The love of money can utterly, absolutely wreck your life. So the question you always have to ask is, how much money is enough? Probably enough to get by, And one of the things that we miss sometimes is the notion that we can not work and have money is nonsense. Okay, you're supposed to work and have money. We'll deal with that in this study. So have you known someone who loved money and didn't have any? You ever know anybody like that? I have. My parents loved money and they never had any. There was a time my dad was making very good money. They spent it all. They spent it all doing, going out to eat, taking trips, and they ended up with nothing. And they kind of loved money, and they loved God too, but they loved money, and it was obvious. And they never had enough. Never had enough. So you can love money and never have enough. You can also love money and have too much. Works both ways. Money can be a false god. I don't think money was my parents' god, but it was right in there under the Lord, and that's not healthy either. It needs to be obvious that God is your God and money is not. So you can love money and totally destroy yourself, okay? And you can love money and have too much. You can love money and not have any. That's just kind of the nature of money. We're going to take a real close look at Ecclesiastes 5, verses 10 through 20. It's not often that we jump into Ecclesiastes, but there's value in Ecclesiastes. So we're going to take a look at a verse at a time. Ecclesiastes 5, verses 10 through 20. First of all, Ecclesiastes 5, verse 10. And I call this money and mortality. Think about that. Money and mortality. In other words, money and fading from this life and dying, okay? Money and mortality. And first of all, Ecclesiastes 5, verse 10. Whoever loves money never has enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with his income. This too is meaningless. The nature of things is that you can love money and never have enough, okay? And you can love wealth and never be happy with your income. How many people you know that get a great big raise and they're happy with it? They may be for a short time, but they always want another one, okay? And it's back to 1 Timothy 6:10. You can The love of money is always a root of all kinds of evil. It never brings you joy and happiness. What you got to do is elevate faith, elevate God, okay, above money. Or the love of money will bring grief and it will not bring happiness. But let me ask you this. Is it possible to have lots of money and not love the money? Is that possible? Can you have lots and lots of money and not love the money? It is possible. It is possible. I think it's a little bit rare, but it's possible to have a lot of money and not love the money. I think it's possible to have a lot of wealth, but not elevate the wealth to the point where it's above God. Look at verse 11. We'll get to that, okay? We're going to get to that. Verse 11. As goods increase, so do those who consume them. And what benefit are they to the owner except to feast his eyes on them? You see, you can gain more and more stuff, okay? And for what reason would you gain more and more stuff? He says to gaze at it, to look at it. Why do we get more stuff? What difference does it make? How many times have you bought something you thought, oh, I got to have this, and then you never use it? That happens all the time. You may have noticed that. I was thinking about a man I knew when I was a kid. He was my parents' age, probably maybe even a little older than they were. But he was a jeweler in our town, and he was in our church, okay? In fact, he was the treasurer and an elder in our church. This man lived in a 2-bedroom little flat in an apartment house in downtown Flagstaff, Arizona for years and years. And they had one daughter, they raised her there, and he worked, he made good money. He's a jeweler in town, had a business, and he saved and saved and saved and saved. Okay, he had more and more money, and he saved until he had enough cash to go out and buy a house. He bought that house at the end of his daughter's junior year in high school. And then she lived in that house with her parents for 1 year and went away to college, never lived in it again. So you kind of ask yourself, why in the world did he save up all this money, get all this wealth, and then put it all into a house? What did he do with the house? Basically lived in it and looked at it. And listen, so what difference did it make? That's the thing you have to answer. What difference did it make? I was thinking about where I live in Porterville, California, Central California. And a year ago, we were in the worst drought ever, and the farmers were going broke because they didn't have any water. The state wouldn't give them water, let it all run off into the ocean. A lot of crazy things go on here. But then this last winter, it rained all the time. And everybody's stuck inside because it's raining, and you couldn't do anything outside. And you know what people are doing now? And I see this all over the neighborhood. All over the neighborhood. You know what they're doing? They're having garage sales. Why? Too much stuff to look at. We just accumulate stuff. So we sell it off in a garage sale. That's the American way. We are hyper wealthy in this country. We don't think of it that way, but we are so wealthy that we accumulate all this useless stuff that we're just looking at. And what do? We have a garage sale, get rid of it. Someone else puts it in their garage so they can look at it and get rid of it. That's the kind of thing we do. So what happens when you get more stuff and more stuff and more stuff? Well, you consume more, and then you get more, so you can consume more. And we just keep doing it. We never catch up. And so we have garage sales to get rid of it. How much sense does any of that make? It's kind of fruitless. Look at verses 12 and 13 of that 5th chapter of Ecclesiastes, 12 and 13. The sleep of a laborer is sweet, whether he eats little or much, but the abundance of a rich man permits him no sleep. I've seen a grievous evil under the sun, wealth hoarded to the harm of its owner. Okay, why does the laborer sleep? Because he's worked hard. That's a healthy thing. He's worked hard to take care of his needs. That's a good thing. It's not bad. So why can't the rich guy sleep? Because he's worried about all his stuff and how he can get more. That's why he can't sleep. The rich guy is so tangled up in his wealth and his stuff that he's concerned about it. How can I go to work and do better? How can I achieve more? How can I get an elevation in pay? How can I get more stuff? So how does the hoarded wealth harm the owner? He says that hoarded wealth harms the owner. it harms him because he can't relax and enjoy life for worry about all his stuff and how to keep it and how to get more. He's tangled up in his stuff. In a lot of ways, a lot of people's stuff owns them and they don't own it. Think about that. A lot of times our stuff owns us. Stuff owns him and he doesn't own his stuff. So how can you have wealth and peace? How could you have wealth and peace? And I want to just read the 19th chapter of Luke, verses 11 through 26. Luke chapter 19, 11 through 26. And this is a long passage, but I want to note some things as we go through it. Okay, Luke 19, 11 through 26. And now I want to ask the question, what's the most obvious thing about this passage? And it's something no one ever talks about, okay? It's the most obvious thing. Let's go through it. While they were listening to this, he, that's Jesus, went on to tell them a parable because he was near Jerusalem and the people thought that the kingdom of God was going to appear. They thought he was going to set up a little kingdom, like overthrow Rome and be a king on earth. Wrong idea, okay? He said, a man of noble birth went to a distant country to have himself appointed king and then to return. So he called 10 of his servants and gave them 10 minas. Put this money to work, he said, until I come back. But his subjects hated him and sent a delegation after him to say, we don't want this man to be our king. He was made king, however, and returned home. Then he sent for the servants to whom he had given the money in order to find out what they'd gained with it. Okay, who gave him the money? The king, okay? The king gave the servants the money. Whose money do you suppose it was? It was the king's. And he gave it to the servants to use it. Think about that. The first one came and said, sir, your mina has earned 10 more. Whose mina was it? It was the king's, not the servants, okay? The king's mina earned him 10 more. Well done, good and faithful servant, his master replied, because you've been trustworthy with a very small matter, take charge of 10 cities. Second came and said, sir, your mina has earned 5 more. Whose mina? The king's, not the servants, okay? His master answered, you take charge of 5 cities. Then another servant came and said, sir, here is your mina. In other words, it's the master's money. I have kept it laid away in a piece of cloth. I was afraid of you because you're a hard man. You take out what you did not put in and reap what you did not sow. Again, it's the master's stuff, okay? That's the big message. Did we miss that, okay? His master replied, I will judge you by your own words, you wicked servant. Did you, that I am a hard man, taking out what I did not put in and reaping what I did not sow? Why then did you put my money on deposit? Why then didn't you put my money on deposit so that when I came back, I'd collect it with interest? Whose money? Whose interest? The king's, not the servants. It was the king's stuff. Then he said to those standing by, take his mina away from him and give it to the one who has 10. Sir, they said, he already has 10. He replied, I tell you that to everyone who has, more will be given, but as for the one who has nothing, even what he has will be taken away. But those enemies of mine who did not want me to be king over them, bring them here and kill them in front of me. Okay, the big message there, whose stuff was it? It's the king's. It's the king's. And the idea is that the servants were stewards of the king's stuff. And that's the thing we miss about our stuff. Who's our king? We've submitted to the kingship of God, right? And so who owns the stuff? God does. He's granted it to us as stewards. We're managers of God's stuff. And when you begin to see it as God's stuff, not your stuff, then you can probably find joy in it, whether you have a lot or whether you have a little. If you see it as God's stuff. My house, it's God's house. My car, I have 2 of them. One is a 2011 Ford Edge, old, it's low miles. I know the car well, take good care of it. It's not my car, it's God's car. It's God's stuff. My bank account, modest though it might be at my advanced age and stuff, it's God's account, not mine, it's God's. That's how you have to see things. And if you can see things that way, you could have great wealth and still be happy because it's not yours, it's God. What would happen if you lost it? You didn't lose anything, it wasn't yours. That's how you have to look at the world. Look at verse 14 of the 5th chapter of Ecclesiastes. Or wealth lost through some misfortune, so that when he has a son, there's nothing left for him. Okay, maybe you lose all your wealth, okay? And there's not even an inheritance for your son. What happens if you lose all your wealth? Well, if you're like me, I don't have much to start with, so it doesn't really matter. But if it's yours, how does it matter? It would. If you see it as yours, oh no, my life just ended. That's how you see it. But if it's not yours, it's no big thing. The guy who provided it for you to start with will take care of you. That's how you have to see things. You could lose everything through some misfortune and not have an inheritance. But if you don't see it as your stuff, what difference does it make? If it was God's stuff and he owned it and you're just a steward, he'll take care of you. That's the point. Look at verses 15 through 17. Naked a man comes from his mother's womb, and as he comes, so he departs. He takes nothing from his labor that he can carry in his hands. This too is a grievous evil. As a man comes, so he departs, and what does he gain, since he toils for the wind? All his days he eats and drinks in darkness. He eats in darkness and with great frustration, affliction, and anger. Okay, you show up naked, you leave naked. You bring nothing in your hand, and you leave with nothing in your hand. There's two richest guys in the world today. It used to be Elon Musk. He's dropped into second place right now. There's a man named Bernard Arnault, and he's worth $215 billion. He surpassed Elon Musk, who's worth $209 billion. What would you do with $215 billion? You think, well, anything you want. But you know what? Whether those guys understand this or not, it's not theirs. God owns everything. He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. These guys think that that's their stuff. It's not their stuff. It's God's stuff, and he can demonstrate that he owns it. You know why? People that are that wealthy can suddenly, instantly, in one day go totally broke and lose everything. That kind of thing happens to people. It did in 1929, the great stock market crash. People were jumping out of buildings in New York City because they went broke. You know, listen, here's the truth. We all show up naked. We all leave naked. We all show up with nothing in our hand. We all leave with nothing in our hand. I did my first funeral in October 1975. And let me tell you, and I've been doing them since. From 75 to 2005, all the time, okay, because I was in full-time ministry. And I do them occasionally now. But I've been doing funerals for a long, long time, a little short of 48 years now. Let me tell you something I've never seen. I've never seen a U-Haul or an armored car behind a hearse. You don't get to take it with you. That's just not how it works. We depart as we came. We came with nothing in our hand. We came naked. We leave the same way. You can't take it with you. So what do we gain when we toil for the wind? We work and we leave it all behind. We leave it all behind. We've got to begin to see it not as ours, but as God's, and not worry about it. Leave it up to him. We toil, we labor for what? Well, what do we gain by working hard? You know, not long ago I heard about a guy who worked hard worked until he was in his about 60, I think he was, and put together a great retirement fund and retired early, was going to go play golf, go fishing. He had a cabin, he was going to go relax a lot, and guess what happened? Had a heart attack and died. I've heard that kind of story over and over and over again for all my life. Guy puts everything together, retires early, and has a heart attack and dies. Or gets cancer and he's gone in 6 weeks. That kind of stuff happens all the time. And look at the 17th verse. All his days he eats in darkness with great frustration, affliction, and anger. So you go through all this, you try to accumulate everything, and what happens? You die. And it doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, all of us die. That's how it works. Now, I want to look at verses 18 through 20. Then I realized that it's good and proper for a man to eat and drink and to find satisfaction, listen to this, in his toilsome labor under the sun during the few days of life God has given him. For this is his lot. We're supposed to work and toil under the sun to provide. That's our lot. Okay, 19. Moreover, when God gives any man wealth and possessions and enables him to enjoy them, to accept his lot and to be happy in his work, this is a gift from God. Notice you're to be happy in your work. And if he gives you stuff while you're here, that's good. It's a gift from God. You have to see it that way. And then verse 20. He seldom reflects on the days of his life because God keeps him occupied with gladness of heart. What keeps him occupied with gladness of heart? He's working. He's doing things. He's making things happen, okay, to take care of his responsibilities. That's an amazing concept, okay? Find satisfaction in toilsome labor when all the days of life. That's what's supposed to happen in life. Did you know Adam and Eve worked? Adam worked in the garden. He had a job. We're supposed to work. We're labor all the days of our life. What is the gift of God? Look at verse 19 again. Moreover, when God gives any man wealth and possessions and enables him to enjoy them, to accept his lot and be happy in his work, this is a gift from God. To be happy in your work, and when God gives you whatever the fruit of your labor is, that is a gift from God. But notice that it's about the fruit of your labor. It's about labor, work. That's what's supposed to happen. It describes work as being occupied with gladness of heart. Work enables God's provision, okay? And whatever wealth you have will be provided by him. So what's the source of my wealth, if I have any? Okay? God is the source through work. God is the source through work. He provides through work. And what happens when we die? We leave it all behind. We don't take it with us. 1 Timothy 6:17 is another one of those passages that's really, really important. 1 Timothy 6:17. Listen to this. Command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth. Now, don't have your hope in wealth, no matter how much you have. It can be gone real quick. Which is so uncertain. Wealth is uncertain. But to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. We're supposed to put our help in God, not our wealth. How much money do you have? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much money you have. Put your hope in God, not wealth. Why? Wealth is uncertain. It can come and it can go. God is everything but uncertain, okay? And usually you work to get what little bit of wealth you have to take care of your family and so forth. Folks, I'm 74 years old. I've had a job since I was 15. And I still have a job. When I get to May of next year, I will have worked 60 years. And I don't want to not work. It's what you're supposed to do. It's what you're supposed to do. 2 Timothy 3:10. Listen to this. 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 10. I'm looking at the wrong thing. 1 Timothy, no. 2 Thessalonians 3:10. I'm in the wrong book. Always helps to be in the right book. 2 Thessalonians 3, verse 10. Says this, for even when we were with you, we gave you this rule. If a man will not work, he shall not eat. Didn't say if he can't work. He said if he will not work, he shall not eat. What's the point? People are supposed to work. That's the point. People are supposed to work. That's the nature of things. We're supposed to work. Now, not everybody does, right? A lot of people today want to sit in the basement of mommy's house and eat bonbons and not do anything and play video games all day long and fiddle around on the internet. That's not what's supposed to happen. And the government enables that, which is wrong, okay? That's not the way things are supposed to happen. Now look at, back to Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verse 20. He seldom reflects on the days of his life because God keeps him occupied with gladness of heart. How does he keep him occupied with gladness of heart? He's working to take care of his responsibilities. That's what's supposed to happen. Doesn't have too much time to sit around and think and what I call navel gaze at the world because he's busy doing things. He keeps him occupied with his work. Now, I want to go to classic passage from Jesus, Matthew 6, 19 through 21. Matthew 6, 19 through 21. Do not, this is not a suggestion, this is a command from Jesus. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. In other words, a treasure on earth can be lost. Don't focus on that. Verse 20, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moth and rust do not destroy, where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. You know what your heart does? Your heart follows your treasure around. Where's your treasure? Where's your treasure? You know, if your treasure is, what do you value? Wherever your treasure is, that's where your heart's going to be wandering, okay? So how do you store up treasures on earth? Well, you build wealth and you buy stuff, okay? That's how you store up treasures on earth. You buy, you accumulate wealth and you buy stuff, you accumulate stuff. But a lot of people have multiple homes all over the place, you know? I'm glad to have one home, tickled pink. And then they buy and accumulate stuff. What happens to it all when you die? It's like the guy who told his wife he'd worked all his life and he'd put together $1 million and he had it in this is years and years ago, had the $1 million cash in his basement, in a chest, big old chest in his basement. And so he was in his bedroom dying and he said, you know what? Told his wife, he said, you put it in the attic in the house. I'm gonna pick it up on my way to heaven. I'm gonna pick it up on my way to heaven. So she did, put it up in the attic so he could pick it up on his way to heaven, wanted to take it with him. Okay, the old boy passed away. She got the funeral director there and removed his body and all that kind of stuff. And she went up to check the attic. Guess what? It was still there. That's how it works, folks. That's how it always worked. He put it in the attic. The millions were still there. You don't get to take it with you. So you can't take the treasure you store up on earth with you to heaven. But you can store treasure in heaven. How do you do that? How do you store treasure in heaven? You serve God, you reach people, try to make a difference in people's lives for the sake of heaven, for their sake in heaven, have an eternal reward. And guess what? Your rewards are waiting in heaven. I want to show you how that works. It's in Revelation 22, verse 12. Revelation 22, verse 12. This is how this works. Behold, Jesus is speaking. Behold, I'm coming soon. My reward is with me. Okay? And I will give to everyone according to what he has done. Who has your reward? Jesus does. He has it for us. He has it in heaven. He's going to bring it with him when he comes, when we head for heaven. So when you die and go to heaven, where's your treasure? Jesus has it. Jesus has your treasure. He has your reward. And he is holding it for you in heaven. And that's where your treasure is. That's where your reward is. So take care of your finances, do your work, but elevate the things of heaven above money and possessions. And that's what you inherit from God. That's the reward. He'll take care of you and he will reward you with the things of God in heavenly glory. Hang on to that. Begin to live that way. You'll be blessed. Hope you subscribe, hit the bell, make comments, give me thumbs up.